afterlife. Hey guys, I am Elizabeth Stevenson, and today we're going to be talking about the afterlife. As much as folks don't seem to actually like thinking about it, everyone wants to know what happens when we die. Is that it? Does our existence end entirely? Or is there life after death, and what could it possibly look like? And does it make a difference how we lived? And I know it's heavy material. A lot of people are really scared of the topic and avoid talking about it entirely for that reason. But the news is actually probably better than you would think. It's surprisingly encouraging information that we're diving into. I guess to get started, we should begin with what we already know, here and now, like existing and stuff. Then what? It's one of the biggest unknown questions of all time. I'd venture to say it's even more unknown than the origins of the universe. At least that stuff we can study and roll backwards. This stuff is kind of the opposite. It's not super tangible, and it's a lot of hearsay. And I think that's the struggle for logical thinkers like me. It's just there's certain truths that can't be tested in a lab. This is the future, and the best that we have are accounts from people who have died and were resuscitated, or predictions from holy texts. So let's go over the sciencey stuff again. I know that stuff kind of seems to work best for us. So for those of you tuning in online, I am glad to have you watching today. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for being open-minded and super cool. One of the coolest things that we know about energy is that once it's created, it cannot be destroyed. So as a human, people's bodies have energy, and all of that energy doesn't just evaporate when they die. It's transferred. The body continues as a new living form. So our energy, or the supreme being's power, is transformed. Soon it's powering a worm to feed a bird, to fly through the sky, to pollinate flowers. So when we think of it like that, reincarnation is very, very real. And the energy of loved ones remains present forever, so we never fully lose anyone entirely. But that's talking about our bodies. Our bodies are physical and temporary houses for our souls, and our souls contain our consciousness. Consciousness is what you're aware of when you introspect. It consists of sensations, thoughts, emotions, desires, beliefs, and free choices that make us alive and aware. The soul is the ego, the I, or the self. It also animates our body. That's why when the soul leaves the body becomes just a corpse. The soul is immaterial and distinct apart from the body. And we know that dualism was taught by ancient Greeks, although it's common lore and shared across most cultures. And they share in that religious tradition. If there were no God, then you would not have any thoughts, beliefs, feelings, sensations, free actions, choice, or purpose. There would simply be one physical event after another physical event, behaving according to the laws of physics and chemistry. Yet consciousness can continue after a person's brain has stopped functioning. Current scientific findings would support the view that the mind, consciousness, or the soul is a separate entity from the brain. Plato elegantly elaborates death is the separation of the soul from the body, and that the state of being dead is the state in which the body is separated from the soul, and the soul exists by itself. So then what happens to the soul? And that's where things got interesting. Did you know that according to a 2004 Gallup poll, approximately 5% or 8 million living Americans had had a near-death experience? The report was so incredibly interesting because I felt like for the first time I could hear how things went down on the other side from somebody who had actually seen and or experienced it. And apparently they were all saying mostly the same thing. Dr. Raymond Moody spoke with about 150 people who had actually died and were resuscitated. He found that once their souls left their body, they pretty much all shared about 15 common experiences, regardless of sex, age, and physical health. First, they hear themselves pronounced dead by a medical person. Then they hear an uncomfortable noise. They feel themselves moving very rapidly through an aperture like a tunnel. They find themselves outside of their bodies watching the resuscitation attempts as spectators. Others come to meet them. They see past relatives or friends, and then they're welcomed by a love beyond anything they've ever known. At some point, a being of love and light appears, and the being asks them questions. The The being enables them to see a sort of panorama of every event of their lives. And at a critical point, they're told that they need to go back. All of them want to stay. For various reasons, they're required or they choose to go back. They'd return to their bodies, and after that, all of them report a complete loss of any fear of death upon returning. It's fascinating. And they couldn't be dreams because they were reporting on real, one-time, current events while being brain dead. And my favorite stories were from those who were blind from birth, who experienced similar things and able to see it all for the first time. Not only does it answer the question that there is a soul and it is not a figment of your imagination, but it also says that the experience is positive. And I love the fact that they all reported a complete loss of fear of death afterwards. That's incredibly encouraging and probably very relieving to many people. But life and death are very natural. There was an interesting personal account from a psychic, Nicole Guillaume, sharing some of her stories regarding what she's heard about the afterlife from the dead themselves, and it did fit with what I'd studied otherwise. Side note, be super careful with that stuff. It is powerful and dangerous, and so I wanted to make sure and give everybody all insight possible for you. But she said that, again, death is very natural. And so with that, at death, a lot of different angels and spirits, and specifically loved ones who have already gone to the other side, come to meet and greet the person who is going to make the transition. So they're never alone. Even if their physical body was alone upon passing, no one makes the transition by themselves. She said upon passing, they said it feels like Velcro or a snap. Like they could feel fine threads of their body pull them apart. It's very gentle and doesn't hurt, but it is, from what they say, a gentle sensation that they feel. Once they step out of their bodies, they're able to see people who are in the room with them or outside of the room with them, just like Dr. Moody's work. But at that point, they usually step into the light right away, again, like Dr. Moody's work. So there is a group of angels and family members at the footstep ushering them in. And I thought that was incredibly interesting because it begs the question of who are those beings and what happens next. After physical death, I used to think that the deceased immediately went to heaven. But the main religions of the world seem to agree that there was a process, actually. Across almost all religions, there does seem to be an agreement that there's several places or levels or progressive stages that people go through. After life, the Catholics believe people go to purgatory. Most Jews believe people go to Sheol. Many Christians call it sleep. Perhaps it's the Elysium fields or Tian. Either way, there seems to be an intermediate set of stages after someone's physical life is complete. Then at some point, assorted popular religions agree that the next step is a division. All believers will be resurrected to eternal life with God, whatever that means, while unbelievers will be eternally separated from God. Some religions refer to it as Judgment Day. All persons will be screened, but I personally believe that those who are disabled will not be judged to the same level as a fully capable person. For example, I believe that the mentally handicapable will be assessed to the standard of the limitations of their deficiencies. And I believe that's why God isn't as explicitly blunt and straightforward as I may want him to be. I think he wants to be able to have the freedom to decide for himself. So suffice to say, he is aware of our circumstances. So while here on earth, from what I've gathered, it seems as though it all boils down to a personal and private decision that people have to choose for themselves where they stand. Before someone dies, it seems as though people must conclude whether they want to return the Creator's love or not. They've heard the information, maybe sought out guidance, or maybe had a life-changing experience. But before someone dies, it seems as though people must conclude whether they want to return the Creator's love, hoping to end their existence living with him in his house. And that's when the Creator becomes Lord, because whether he's your Lord or not, he's still the Creator. And those that reject the notion as foolish or maybe uninspiring, they get to live life solely on their own, still likely having good times and hard times, but ultimately hoping that there's no judgment of souls in the end. And I love my atheist friends. Like, it's their choice, and I wouldn't dream of judging them negatively. But when I roll it out, I do worry about the afterlife, because sometime in the afterlife, most religions say there's going to be a separation. And the folks who were pro-God in life will go onward with him, and everybody else could permanently reside in whatever is left when all of the love and light and goodness departs. Those who believe in hell believe it was created for Satan and his beings. Hell is meaningful as a separation from God and as a metaphor as a place of destruction and desolation. But not going to church won't send someone to hell. Sin sends people to hell. It would be like asking, am I going to die because I didn't go to the hospital? No, you're going to die because of the disease inside of you, not because you didn't see a doctor, but I bet he could have helped if you had allowed him to. And many religions say that people go to hell because they rejected the notion of God, as in innocent people don't go to hell, guilty people do. Well, then what makes a person guilty? And the simplest answer is that we all are. But the reason why is more complex. To elaborate, historically, being innocent meant following guidelines to help ensure that everyone lived in a way that loved themselves, loved others, and respected God. If someone made a mistake, then it was called a sin. If they sinned, then they had to give a sacrifice to atone for each of their sins, like giving a gift to apologize or something. And since everyone has made a mistake at least once, then we're all considered guilty. One other personal account I came across was from a woman who had overdosed, died, and before being revived, swears she went to hell. Or in her words, she wasn't in hell, she was hell. She felt touched by every sin of the world, and the thought came to her that this is what Jesus felt. And the fear was so great that she was paralyzed and glued to the surface. And she felt her spirit and her conscience kept asking, me, I'm in hell, but I'm a good person. She said that she was surrounded by demons speaking different languages and they were going to literally eat her. Apparently, that's a common memory from several other accounts I've listened to. They repeated several similar things. It's a really disturbing image. The woman was completely dead for 15 to 20 minutes, but said that it felt like a billion years to her mentally. And she said that she feels like her memory was protected when she returned to life, and now she doesn't want anyone to go there, not even the worst person. Following that experience, she's been sober ever since. So whether you agree with what happened or not, or believe her story, the way I see it, it was still a positive experience, and she turned around her life because of it, which I know sounds horrible, that whole idea of hell. And if there is really a good and loving God, then how could he allow anyone to land there? But the answer is out of love. Love for those under his care and protection, because nobody wants Hitlering in heaven. Yes, I created a verb. But then also love for the people who said no. The Creator, I believe in, is not going to force a relationship. So if someone doesn't want him, then he's essentially giving them what they want, distance. If someone didn't want God while on earth, then they certainly aren't going to want him in heaven eternally. How cool is it that not only did the Creator create a plan that gives everyone what they want, but also protects his people, and he made the entrance exam process incredibly easy. The Creator loves us so much that he wouldn't force a relationship, force actions, or force repentance. But since he loves us that much, he also wants a relationship and good, healthy actions. Anyone can opt in or opt out. All you have to do, though, is opt in. Because people found the old plan, the whole atonement offering for every sin arrangement, too challenging, a new arrangement was made. Through Jesus Christ, one singular offering so valuable was made that nobody ever again would need to make another act of atonement. Much more happened at Jesus of Nazareth's birth, death, and resurrection than people realize. It was an invisible, otherworldly war between good and evil. Team God just needed one perfect exchange gift, an entirely flawless life to cover us all, to win the game. With Jesus' successful resurrection, Satan's ultimate defeat was assured. But time hasn't run out yet. There's still time left on the clock. So now Team God just rides it out until the end. And the news on how it will all end is practically as Absurd is how it began. Listen to this. In 5 to 8 billion years, the sun is going to expand to 250 times its normal size, and it's going to envelop the Earth. In 800 million years, the carbon dioxide levels on Earth will have dropped so low that there won't be any more photosynthesis, which means no more oxygen. By 3.5 billion years, our atmosphere will resemble that of Venus, the hellhole, which is clearly to say that at some point, humanity's existence on this planet will inevitably end. Earth will pass away one way or another. Ironically, just as it began, light will envelop us all. And life it's so temporary. Our universe and our bodies aren't made to be eternal. I think that's why we age. It's literally a visual reminder that we're all just passing through. Because remember, evil is not someone's disappointed idea of what their life should have been. Evil's not expecting to live 90 pain-free years, yet receiving 45 riddled years. To understand how a loving creator could let people suffer and the loss of life for survivors, then maybe folks need to shift their perspective of life. Sure, that could be evil to an atheist, but our temporal lives will be a drop in the bucket when compared to eternity. Life is not a single line with a starting and an end point. According to most religions, life is a ray. So scientists can think of it like wave-particle duality. It goes up and down, but always moving forward. And struggles are natural. They come and go. And there's a never-ending supernatural life that follows it, though, in which case a shortened earthly life would be a blessing. What we're headed towards is infinitely better than what we have here. Well, that's all good news. I know it doesn't mean that losing a loved one doesn't hurt. It's hard, not so much for the dead, but for the living. I mean, to share my own witness account, I speak from personal knowledge what real grief looks like, but it's natural and it's real. And the sadness, it brings people together. There is so much love in sadness and so much unity that comes through it. Misery does love company, and pain brings people together if they let it. And empathy is such a beautiful thing. But I think that they're better off. Someday it'll be my turn, and although I look forward to the day that I don't have to deal with Atlanta traffic with plenty of patience, I don't fear death. For followers, the sooner that they get this shoddy earthly life over with, the sooner they can get the real party started. While on earth, Jesus told his followers, "In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would not have told you so. I go to prepare a place for you. If I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also." Heaven, also known as the New Jerusalem, is the future dwelling place of the people of God. We would have a new citizenship in God's future kingdom where everything would be new, pure and secure. Religious texts describe heaven as this unbelievable place made of gold covered in precious stones, surrounded by gold walls with 12 pearly gates. Descriptions include many references to 12s. Symbolism indicates that covenant with the 12 tribes of Israel and the 12 apostles. It's the old and the new covenant coming together there. Even the measurements are said to be symbolically important, as multiples of 12 illustrate that it's a flawless place for the people of God. Think about the words, flawless. No pain, no fear, no loss, no hate, no earthly bodies with earthly limitations, just unlimited joy, love, and peace. So that brings me to the end of our big timeline. We went from past before time all the way through to the future. In the very near future, next chapter to be exact, we're going to dig into, in light of it all, why I chose my responses to those big questions, the conclusion of everything. So Do me a favor though, please share your love for past family and friends. We can all do them honor and love their memory and find unity with that. So post about them in the comment section below, share your experiences and your memories, and I look forward to sharing it with you. Thank you so much for being a part of this and being here for the journey. I'm Elizabeth Stevenson and I love you guys.